Rabbi David Meyer is a Paris-born rabbi who lives in Belgium and spends 2 days a week at the Vatican, where he is the only rabbi on the faculty of the Pontifical Gregorian University, which trains Vatican clergy. Rabbi Meyer was in Washington recently to testify before a Senate subcommittee on the resurgence of anti-Semitism in Europe. He also stopped by Catholic University to talk about his experiences in a lecture entitled "A Rabbi Encounters the Catholic Church." Afterwards, he spoke with Moment about Jewish-Catholic relations and whether European Jewry has a future. I'm Amy Schwartz, Moment's opinion editor. So, you grew up in Paris, and as a young boy, I understand you witnessed the bombing of the synagogue on the Rue Copernic?
Yes, that's right. That was in October 1980, and that was just a few weeks before my bar mitzvah. And like many Jewish boy at that age, I wasn't a regular at the synagogue except for the year or the 2 years preceding the bar mitzvah. So of course I ended up being in the synagogue at that time. The first thing I remember, there's 2 levels on that synagogue, so I was at the balcony on the 2nd level, and I remember my kippah fell off, and I was at the 1st row. And I do remember that what came through my mind was, if that's a bomb and now it's a mess in the synagogue, surely there's going to be another one. That's sort of an immediate thought that I had. Then we were taken out, and most of the carnage obviously was outside because the bomb was put outside of the synagogue. I remember my parents being in a panic because together with my brother we decided to go back home walking, and my parents had heard on the radio and they knew we were in the synagogue, and so they tried to go to the synagogue and they couldn't find us. So that I remember that when we got reunited a few hours later, that had been a few good hours of panic, probably more for them than for us, because we were just under the shock of the attack. And I remember also the 2 striking elements that followed. The first one was massive demonstration in France. I mean, there was, I think, the biggest ever demonstration in Paris of, they say, 1 million people on the street to declare their willingness to fight against anti-Semitism. But equally true, I also remember, of course, the infamous words of the French Prime Minister, who considered that out of the 4 victims, only 3 were innocents, because there was only 1 who was supposed to go into the synagogue. The 3 others were just passing by, so those were the innocent, and the Jew wasn't. So all that is very vivid in my memory, even if it's many years later now.
I remember that too. It seems like not the most likely foundation for a life in interfaith relations. How do you get from there to here?
Well, I think it's, first of all, it's the statement of a politician that has an history of anti-Semitic statement and rejection of Judaism, which doesn't necessarily, of course, translate into anything more which would relate to interfaith dialogue. I mean, he wasn't representing any faith whatsoever. What he was representing was the state, the French Republic, and the question that it begs is not so much, I think, about the interfaith dialogue and the viability of that dialogue, but more about the viability of being a Jew in a country that considers that its Jewish citizens are not innocent. And that's a question that remains, of saying, you know, we cannot just forget what was said. And even, I remember when Raymond Barre was his name, died a few years ago, he was interviewed before his death to know, is that really what he meant? And he said, well, that's exactly what he meant, and the whole fuss about it was just due to the Jewish lobby.
Oh my.